but men have come into the darkness to bring you the light. We did it for you. We come to light your torch.
Peace to the gods. Welcome
So that you may light up the
to Black Philosophical Society. I gotta forgive my voice. A little hoarse right now, I should say. But we're gonna make it through this one. Just want to talk real quickly about historicity, Christ, Jesus, some call him, Yeshua, Yahweh, whatever you prefer. We need to talk about the name one day too, because it's crazy to me that I put so much stock in the name, power in that name, but millions of Christians don't seem to care about getting the name right. It's wild to me, but that's a topic for another day. Just talking about the historicity of the person, period, known as Jesus. I know many of us have moved past this a long time ago. We long decided that Jesus is not a real person. He didn't exist. Strong mythicist, right? Mythicist. But I don't think enough of us acknowledge or are aware that the majority of European historians, gotta make that caveat, because Europeans will not make that caveat. They just speak of their scholars and historians as if they're the only ones that exist. Right? So we need to make that distinction that most of their scholars do accept that it's likely that Jesus was an actual person. Right? Not talking about none of the miraculous shit. Just a guy named whatever, Yeshua, lived at this time and probably was a radical street preacher. There was a person that lived that this story was based on, right? Or this religion is based on. And yeah, I'm not in that camp, right? I'm with probably most of you, but I don't even believe that. I don't even believe he was an actual person that lived. I think the whole thing is based on other stories that predate it. And that's simply because of the lack of evidence, right? Support the existence of this guy. What they called evidence for him is shaky at best. Not convincing to me. But a lot of theists try to take that fact that historians agree with them and they run with that as if it somehow validates Christianity. Right? And that's what I want to talk about. That's my position, is that it doesn't at all validate Christianity, even if we grant you that Jesus was a person that lived. It doesn't get you closer to truth of the Bible or God existing. Oh, many will argue that if you don't accept the evidence for Jesus that most European historians accept, then you would have to throw out all kind of different figures in history. Maybe like a Hercules. People, they accept that Hercules was a person and the myth is based on an actual person. So, yeah, the evidence for Hercules is about as good as the evidence for Jesus, though. They just accept that this was probably a real person. So, yeah, if that's what if I have to throw away Hercules because I'm skeptical about Jesus, then fine. That doesn't bother me at all to say that some of these European myths are just myths. Like, I don't have no problem with that. That's important for Europeans. Hold on to some of these historical figures, right? They need some kind of greatness in their past, like Africans have in their past. Don't need myths to prove greatness of our gods, right? We got their bones, their mummies, their DNA. People who lived way before Jesus. We got irrefutable, indisputable proof they lived. So get that out the way. I don't care nothing about that. The evidence for Jesus is just as good as the evidence for some other historical figures. Which ones? Mostly European ones, right? So that's y'all's problem. I don't care nothing about that. You can throw all that shit out. Yeah, a lot of the European history is probably a lie. Wouldn't be hurt me at all to say that. So, but anyway, yeah, so back to the idea that if Jesus was a person, this somehow gets you closer to Jesus being a divine figure or two. Like, that's a leap that no historians, you're not going to be able to say that historians are making that leap. Like, that's, and as far as them accepting him as a historical figure, I think y'all give too much credence to that. Because they're not running around saying there's a preponderance of evidence proves he was a historical figure. They're saying, yeah, he probably was a guy who was a preacher or something. That's as far as they go with it. Like, they're not making strong claims about his existence. Or if they were, you would see him in some history books, right? That's how you can test that theory. Historians really thought Jesus was a significant historical figure. Founder of one of the largest, oldest religions. Somebody tried to tell me recently. If that's the case, then he should pop up in some history book somewhere. He doesn't. You gotta study theology. You gotta study Christianity to learn about Jesus. Not gonna be able to find him in no history class, history book. That right there just tells you, yeah, historians are not convinced Jesus existed. And if they did think he existed, like I said, they don't think he was anything special. So I think they put way too much stock into that. Especially since I said it doesn't get you any closer to him being divine. And in that sense, I was trying to explain to somebody on one of these groups on Facebook that if Jesus is not divine, and most Christians believe he is divine, if all he was just a man, if we just grant you that, then your Jesus still doesn't exist. All right? Not the same person anymore. Like the Hercules of myth is not the actual Hercules. That's a different character. Based on, you can say, on a true story, on an actual person, but that's not the same person. Kind of more similar to how they say Magneto and Professor X were based on Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. You gonna say those the same people? No, two completely different characters. But it's based on actual people. That's what I'm saying. You don't establish the miraculous part of Jesus, then all you got is, at best, a Martin Luther King. You don't have Professor X. Y'all believe in Professor X. That's the problem. So your concept the Christian concept of Jesus don't exist if we're going by what historians say, because that's all they willing to give you. That there's a person that's based on. See that what I'm saying? Essentially, your Jesus still don't exist until you can establish the miraculous part. That's what you need. You don't believe in Jesus the person, Jesus just the man. Y'all believe in Jesus the God. Right? Right. The divine Jesus. So that's what you have to have in order to say Jesus exists or existed. What Jesus? Just the man? Man, don't get you nowhere. Doesn't help your case at all for us to grant that there could have been a person named Jesus. No more than it helps the case for Santa Claus that there was a person named Saint Nicholas. Right? Knowing that there was a Saint Nick doesn't get you any closer to some guy in the North Pole with elves making toys and shit. See what I'm saying? That's a whole different character. Y'all believe in the Santa Claus. So there's why granting you that Saint Nick exists don't get you nowhere. It doesn't add any credibility to the claim that there's a guy in the North Pole making toys. Get that? You got that simple train of thought, train of logic. Now we're going to take it a step further. This is where it's going to fuck them up right here. I'm not going to be able to accept this, but this is also logical. Logically follows. Even if I grant you that there was a divine Jesus, of Jesus that did miracles, a Jesus that rose from the dead, it still don't get you no closer to God exists. Oh shit. What? Yeah. Some of y'all don't believe in none of this, and you ain't even get that. Listen, there are too many other possibilities we would have to rule out. Could be other explanations. Jesus could be a fucking alien from outer space. Jesus could be a time traveler from future, and he just came with some technology that we call miracles. What? Maybe he didn't fucking get abducted by angels and the stone was rolled away. Maybe he teleported back home. And I'd say it sounds ridiculous. That's what y'all want to do. You just want to brush it off. Hand wave it shit away. But you can't. These are other possible worlds, other possible explanations that you would have to rule out before I say, oh no, Yahweh did it. Jehovah is responsible. God did this.
Jungle music,
That's a logical leap I do not have to take. I can grant you all of that shit. I can grant you the miracles. You have to tell me how those therefore equal God. No, it's not enough because it says so in the book. It could just be what the aliens wanted you to think. Gotta marinate on it. No. Tough pill to swallow. Some of y'all, it just sounds completely irrational. You mean to tell me, even if Jesus rose from the dead, you still don't believe it's God? Oh. Y'all believe other people rose from the dead, that God didn't rise from the dead. God didn't directly raise Lazarus from the dead. I'm gonna say, no, well, Jesus is God. Well, then if Jesus is God, then why would I make the leap to God? Maybe Jesus is far as it go. You have to tell me why I have to make that leap. Why I got to take it a step further than Jesus? Because the book said something that makes you think it need to be that way, right? As it is written. I have to grant you that Jesus said he was God. Like, that's something we have to interpret. Mean that I'm granting it. Right? Check my list, make sure I covered everything. Got my little outline over it. Like, we don't have to accept it as true just because historians agree on it. Right? That would be an appeal to authority. I know y'all gonna say, oh, that's a valid appeal to authority because they're experts in their field. Well, fine. I'll even grant you that. Still doesn't make it true. Appeal to popularity, appeal to authority. None of those are gonna get you to therefore it's the case. Well, yeah. Like I said, y'all put too much stock in it, but not gonna be, I don't think it's gonna be the minority position very long. Yeah, I don't think who's credible and who's relevant and all of that, that's debatable. I don't think that's a game that we should be playing, because they'll just try to discredit all of our scholars if we go by that. Let them decide who's relevant and who's, qualified. But yeah, y'all chew on that shit, man. Jesus existing as a guy, radical street preacher, doesn't lead you to Jesus the God. Jesus the God don't lead you to God the Father. These are logical steps you gotta take. You gotta connect the dots between these steps. Like, how do we get from here to here to here? This be because it says so in your book. Right? I think that was it. Till next time. Think how you still can. Peace.
Stalked them in my garden of Eden. Left them bleeding, receding like hairlines. Rare minds spit fair rhymes. Spare time to share crime with mankind, cause they're blind. I enlighten, reciting my verses like holy scriptures. Paint pictures that break directors with paper and pencil mixtures. I be true and living, Anunnaki, you carbon copy. My light'll blind the sun, now watch me, Omar Gaddafi. Ain't even half as ill as I be. See, I'm kamikaze, collecting haters' heads for hobby.
Started at the crimson level, slayed the dragon, chained the devil to the bottom.